this group is very special. So normally, I do these things, they can run from 4 hours, 5 hours, or longer. SRF group, I'm assuming that a lot of people are into SRF or variations of that. Gentlemen, how many people are into SRF? Okay, that answers my question again. All right, so when I usually work a group like this, I don't have to spend so much time trying to change the energy, the frequency, or the light and vibration of the group. And that's going to come into play, because what we're talking about today, you came here and you want to learn about self-healing. And I'm telling you that all healing is self-healing. Even if you go into a doctor, you know, doctors don't give you a scab. Doctor doesn't heal the bone. They may set it in place, but you are the ultimate healer of your body. You're also the ultimate healer of your mind and your soul. And here's what gets us in trouble. When the mind, the body, and the spirit are not frequency redundant. They're not lined with the same level of frequency. The vibration is different in each. Like you got 3 different kinds of tuning forks. It should take the same vibration for all these. And I've been talking about this for years. Somebody let her in, please. There you go. I've been talking about this for years, and I didn't realize till when I was in Salt Lake City, somebody says, "Oh, Reverend Bill, what you're talking about, they're already doing tuning forks are killing cancers." I go, "Really?" "Yeah, didn't you watch the 60 Minutes about that?" And I go, "Really?" I said, "Okay." So apparently they've rediscovered these certain resonant vibrations, frequencies that the Catholic Church discovered when they started doing Gregorian chants. And in India, with the Sanskrit chants, they're using certain frequencies, about 7 of them, the basic ones. And now they've added some. But there's like 7 frequencies that if you reach that frequency, it has a healing quality. And depending on what you want to heal, that's the frequency you want to go. Now, there's people out there teaching tuning forks, Tibetan bowls, in case you wonder what they're trying to get that frequency for, or chanting ohms, and chanting all these things and singing. All those things are trying to get you to resonate at a higher level. I want to skip through that because I'm not a master's degree and all that stuff. And I go, let's keep it simple. Instead of using instruments and tools to change our frequency, let's do it from within. And I found that the greatest way to change a frequency is by practicing love. You could be doing Kriya Yoga every day. You could be doing Hong Sa. You could be doing anything you want. You could be, serving the public, feeding homeless people, doing good deeds. But if you're not starting off with this premise of everything's about love, if it's not based there, then you're missing a major step. And you're going to ask yourself, well, why is he talking about this? We're coming here for the healing. Where's the meat? Or in this case, where's the soy, right? Come on. Where's the tofu? All right. So, see, that's more spontaneous. I'm already crying. Our bodies, our minds, and our spirits are out of frequency. All of us to some degree. And I want to take the time and tell stories, and inspire, and bore you, and you're kind of wondering where this endless stuff is going. It all has a purpose. For those that attended my one last 2 months ago, you realize that everything is building the energy change within you. You all have the ability to have this great energy. Well, what happens is, it's like being a car. If I got a great car and it's sitting out here in the parking lot and I let it sit out there with the headlights on, after a while it could be the brand new car, it ain't gonna run. Healing abilities within you. I'm here to jumpstart, to recharge that little spark in there, and then let you prime it, go. So that's what my part in this is. So as I talk, as I tell stories, as I go on and babble, being a typical Irishman, blarney, a lot of blarney. The idea is to constantly get you to forget the intelligence, forget thinking, and just be there and kind of lulled into this sense of frequency change. Don't think about that. Now, there's a lot of teaching styles, and I guess mine would be called, I just live it. I don't study it. I don't have a master's degree or doctorate in this science I'm teaching. What you're getting from me and what I promise you is everything that I tell you today, I've learned, I've experienced, I've used it, it's worked. And now that I turned, officially last week, I turned 77. In case you're wondering, 77, let's hear it, the old man's still alive. All right. As I told my grandson the other day, I says, yeah, don't tell me about you can't find your cell phone. I never lost mine when I was your age. Anyway. So, we are here today to learn. That's the first intention I want you to set your mind on. The only thing I want you to think about is be open. And I tell people, think with your heart. And I've always said that, and then I thought, well, that's really a stupid thing. I said, but I always feel like I think with my heart. And then 3 weeks ago, I'm reading an article. And several years ago, or a decade or two ago, they discovered that the actual cells that are like in your brain, there's actually thousands of these in your heart that actually act just like the brain. The heart actually has the structure at that level of cellular of the brain. So when people say, well, I think with my heart, they really do. And when you fall in love, you are thinking with your heart, right? And so bear with me, listen to me, but don't worry about each word and what I'm saying and what the meanings are. I'll randomly tell stories, and they always sound like they're random. And then right afterwards or during the break, somebody will tell me something that they need to hear that or whatever, or weeks later. I say that because I was doing this. I rented a church in Elk Grove, California, my town where I live. And it was really stormy and didn't look like I was going to get a big reception of people and stuff. But they heard about me at this old age retirement community. They sent all these buses over with all these old people. You know, they had all these people coming into walkers, you know, and all this stuff. And I go, hey, all right, come on, never too late. And I was feeling for all these old people until I found out I was the oldest one there. I go, all right. So with an old group, and I'll do the same thing, I'll just assume that you'll have the same needs I do. But we're going to go about 45, 50 minutes, maybe an hour, a little bit, once in a while. We're going to take a lot of breaks because I want people to, you know, use the restrooms, walk around, feel good, buy books, make donations, all that stuff. But I don't want you to get lost and start, I want you to try to retain the energy a little bit, okay? What I'm doing is not a business. Everything I get, I pour back in. I'm paying for my own way to Germany. I'm paying for my own way to England. I'm paying for wherever I go around the world. And but it's not a business, and you're not clients, and you're not my patients. If you come here, you're a fellow traveler. And as I give these talks, I'm always looking for those one or two in the audience, and they will know who they are, that want to do something a little deeper. In other words, well, Reverend Bill ain't going to be around forever. Look at him, man. He's going to drop dead here in any day, right? Is he still alive, really? What I've learned in 77 years, and I'm going to talk about that process. What I've learned in 77 years, I want to pass on in the next 2 to 3 years to a cadre of people that want to do what I'm doing worldwide. Whether they want to charge or not, it's up to them. They can do it free. They can, you know, make it part of what if they're already in the healing business, add it to their tools. I don't care. But I don't want what I've learned to die when I die. Simple as that. And there's people here that are in the healing business or the healing, what's the word I'm looking for? Community. There you go, better word. The healing community. And we're talking spiritual healing, physical healing, mental healing. Every workshop I've given worldwide, somebody's been healed. 6, 7 people have been healed. A dozen. It's a different number. It really depends on the group. Not only is this about self-healing, this is about self-believing and accepting. You can be very analytical. The more analytical you are, the more intellectual you are about everything that I'm going to reveal and talk about, it's not helping you. Think about me. I'm succeeded in life all these years and survived. Why? Because I'm childlike. I mean, all kinds of stuff can happen to me, and it doesn't bother me. I go, oh, okay, it's supposed to happen. I'm all right. You okay? I'm okay. You know, everything's okay. I don't overanalyze anything. And I'm expecting that there's somebody here who will listen to that message and realize that nothing's that important. Everything that happens to you is supposed to happen to you. People go, oh no, there's fate. There's fate. There's no fate. Fate you created from your karma. Every thought, action, deed, desire, I don't care if it's over 1,000 lifetimes, that creates your present day situation. So there is no and will never be any innocent victims. We're all in this together. Now, having said that, there are people in the world that will take a bullet for somebody else that's for the greater good. You know, it's not their karma, maybe it's a greater karma. You know, Jesus or, you know, whatever person you want to throw in there. There are people out there that do that. So, what created what I'm doing? We'll start with the fact that I've been in Self-Realization Fellowship since 1946. Just kind of give you a background. And now do the math, 1946, 77, all right. So I was pretty darn young. I was, first got an SRF, I was speechless. It was so overwhelming, I couldn't say a word for a year and a half. Anyway, but my mother and my family was in it. In the 40s, it was a whole different world then. It wasn't so well known around the world. The book came out in 1946 and it kind of started to take off. But I learned something when I was 3, 4, 5 years old. If I use the word recharging exercises, does that ring a bell? People think, okay, for those does anybody not know what the recharging exercises are from SRF? Okay. Recharging exercises, Paramahansa Yogananda, who started Self-Realization Fellowship, created these exercises for Westerners, basically, because he didn't see Westerners sitting down doing all these poses and, you know, the leg behind the head and all this kind of stuff. So he designed stuff that was very Westernized, almost like calisthenics. And everybody kind of fluffs it off. Well, you do this to prepare yourself for meditation. But if you're hanging around long enough and you meditate and you realize that, no, it's not just preparing you for meditation. Doing the recharging exercises, if you do them with full intent and purpose, especially the part about energizing, like picture lifting a 100-pound weight with your hand, you know, and it's like, it's really using your muscles, but there's nothing there, right? It's all, so it's that power to do that tension that's bringing the light, the energy within you and changing your actual frequencies. So the recharging exercises, I was 8 years old when I started thinking about this. I realized that it's changing my energy. It's preparing you for meditation, yes, but it's also changing your overall frequency, the level that you vibrate, the light within you. And so some of you may not know my background, but at 8 years old, I ended up in the hospital dying. I was in the San Jose County Hospital as a ward of the county. And I had a near-death experience. And I don't want to repeat it. People already know about my near-death experience. Oh, okay. Near-death experience. At 8 years old, I go into the hospital. I'm by myself. I'm in an isolation ward, and I'm in a dark room, and boom, my first night away from my family at 8.5 years old. I leave my body. I'm floating over the body. You know, and it's just your typical, how many people had a near-death experience? Okay, a typical near-death experience, except most near-death experiences, you have a life review. You know, well, I'm 8 years old. What am I going to review? You know, oh, okay, I pulled a dog's tail once, you know, and, all right. I teased my sisters. All right. I had a life preview that went 50 years in advance. Okay? So, like, for the next 50 years of my life, it was like deja vu. All right. That's a lecture for another day. That's just kind of the background. But realize I was 1 year in the hospital. 1 year. Total bed rest. Not allowed to go to the restroom. Not allowed to go shower. Not allowed. I had visitors 15 minutes once a week. Sundays. That was it. No visitors, no toys, no TV, no smartphone, no dumb phone, nothing. Radio, nothing. Record player, nada. No school. Greatest thing that ever happened to me. Because I had all that time to lay in bed with my imagination and the intention to talk to God. And then it grew from talking to God. I realized that was only part of the communication factor. I go, I just want to listen to God, and I want to be loved by God. And so went into that receptive mode. In other words, reaching out and giving love to God instead of asking for it. And it took about a year to evolve in a hospital like that. When I got out, I was so grateful for my life that when I got home, I told my mother, I says, I want to be a vegetarian. I don't want to eat meat anymore. I was the only one, even if it was SRF family, everybody ate meat. And I ate no meat. And I'm going to tell you, in 1953, 4, 5, there was no choices on the menu anywhere. Of course, in the 50s, for those that are old enough to remember, nobody went out and ate, right? And that was a time when people say, hey, new clothes, are those store-bought or handmade? And they meant it as a compliment. You know, it's like, nobody ever, when's the last time somebody asked, is that store-bought? That's died with my generation. So I came home, and I was sitting there, and my mother and I were in the front room, and we heard the sound of a choir, beautiful angelic voices. And she said, did you leave the radio on? I go, no radio, no television. It didn't have a television, no radio, no record player, nothing. Wherever room we walked into the house, the sound of this angelic choir was singing. We walked outside. We walked a block each direction. Wherever we went, the sound was there. We're both hearing it. And I go, wow, my mother says, it must be the sound of the angels. They're singing, right? I said, okay, great. So the next day or so, I'm sitting on the sofa, and I hear a crash, bang, and out in front of my house, a car going about 40 miles an hour hits and runs over my dog. You know, 40 miles an hour hitting a dog, broke. And I go out there, and the dog is laying in the street, asphalt, tongue hanging out the side, blood trickling out each corner of the mouth, coming out of the nose, out of the ears, out of the tear ducts. I mean, this thing was flattened. But it was still whimpering alive, no movement. And I love my dog, so I picked it up. I carried it in the house, and the guy that hit it's kind of going, what? I'm sorry, you know. And I just walked into the house. I sat down on the couch, and I remembered what we were just talking about, recharging exercises. I said, this dog needs to be recharged. So then I took my hands on the dog, and I just kind of did one of these things like that where you just, like that, right? And wake up. Anyway, stand up. Yeah, stand up. Walk. It's a miracle. Give her applause. Okay, sit down. All right. See, it worked then too. So I did this to the dog, and the dog all of a sudden was like shot with electricity. It was like bolt, boom. And the dog got up and ran around the house, lived another 8 years. And I said, okay, let's file that one away. That works. Because I did that with love. It was true love for the animal. And I visualized the energy coming down through the top of the head. I wasn't into this. It was coming through the, whatever, the crown chakra. I was simple. I was a child. I was like, light's coming through me. It's coming out my hands. There it is. It's blessed. Yogananda will bless it. It's good. It'll roll. And it did. And then when I was a teenager, one day after high school graduation, summer 1964, I left home. And I went to live in Hawaii. Being a wise young man, I had my surfer wax and surfboard and had $40 and no job and a one-way ticket. I figured, what could go wrong? I mean, this is a perfect setup, right? So I get to Hawaii. Of course, I ran out of money. And before I left, my late sister, she just died last year, she said, you can't go to Hawaii and have no friends or nothing there. She says, I'll give you the address of my boyfriend's grandfather. He lives there. Just take it, put it in your wallet. So after a couple of days, I realized $40 didn't pay for food. It didn't pay for one night in Hawaii, even in 1964. And so I went looking for him. And first person I asked where the street and the address was at, the guy says, "What are you, dummy? It's right there." It was like from here to the street out there, the guy's apartment was right there. I mean, the whole Honolulu area, that's where it was at, right? I knock on the door, and this Hawaiian Kahuna, picture with the hair and, and the big eyes and, the earring. And David K. Bray, the real deal. Real Kahuna. He was in several movies in Hollywood, playing, of all things, a shaman, a kahuna, all these wild people. But he was the real deal. The state of Hawaii paid him, 1964, they paid him $300 to bless new highway construction. He'd do a ceremony. They did a movie with Fabian and Frankie Avalon, Ride the Wild Surf. He blessed the surf, or the surfers wouldn't go out there to do the movie. And he had a good gig going. Anyway, but the guy really was powerful. And his whole clan of shaman, teachers, priests went all the way back to King Kamehameha's inner circle. So that's who I was meeting as. I knocked on the door. This guy didn't know. He didn't know I was coming. I've never been introduced to him, nothing else. When I knock on the door, he just stands there staring at me. I'm going, I'm just 18 years old. He's 60-some years old. And he goes, "I've been waiting for you." I go, "What?" I'm not collecting for the newspaper or nothing. No, he says, "No, I've been waiting for you." He says, "I know who you are." "Oh, really?" And he says, and he goes this whole thing about it. He says, "I've been waiting these years to have an apprentice, and none of these people are worthy here that have asked." He says, "But you," he says, "you were my teacher. You were my kahuna during the times of King Kamehameha." And I'm going, I'm 18 years old. I'm going, what's this guy smoking? And of course, we didn't do that back then. Trust me. They didn't do that back then. So I was just like, sure, okay. So he brings me in, and I spend the summer there learning all these things that he's doing. And while I'm there, Otto Preminger come to his place, and Tony Curtis, and I mean, you name it. All the movie stars, anybody would show up at his apartment. They all wanted to learn from this guy. And so he asked me one day, he says, "I'm going to give you the most important lesson you're ever going to have about healing." I think, oh, this is going to be something really profound here, right? I'm ready to take mental notes. He says, "It's all about love." And I go, come on, I'm 18 years old. I got surf going out here. I could be out there in the waves, and you're telling me the most important thing I got to learn about healing is love. I said, "That's it?" And he says, "Oh, well, forgiveness." And I go, "Is that it?" He says, "No, you have to have gratitude." I go, he says, "If you want to heal anybody, including yourself, you love yourself. You forgive yourself. And have gratitude and be grateful for everything that's happened to you, and that includes the bad things, because there is no bad thing. Cancer? If cancer makes you focus on God and focus on your family and your relationships, is it a bad thing? If cancer Makes you burn karma. Is that a bad thing? So he told me that, and I go, all right, let's chuck that one up. We won't need that for 100 years. Well, a couple of decades ago, I kind of rediscovered that whole thing. I'm going, wait, this guy was onto something. So I know the dynamic tension, the energy pulling in through through the exercises worked. And I also knew that love and forgiveness and gratitude apparently was working. Then I noticed in the last couple decades, all of a sudden everybody's discovered Hawaii now, and everybody's, oh yeah, love, forgiveness. Well, that wasn't even on a radar in 1964. This was ancient stuff. Now they call it, Oponopono, all that other stuff, there's names for it. And people just kind of rattle it on like it's, a big deal. But they're losing the intent of the whole thing. The whole thing is, if you want to heal somebody, heal yourself. If you want to love somebody, love yourself. If you can't start with you, you're not going to change anybody else. The only person you have control over is you and your reactions. So to go back and kind of recap that, so basically I learned this Hawaiian technique. I learned this yoga technique that I kind of repurposed. Basically, I just repurposed Yogananda's teachings. I go, no, this works. I think there's a higher healing power here, and I think he understood that. It was never articulated. Just getting the Westerners to do this was enough. They didn't have to understand. And then I went to India, many, many trips to India, and I met people in the Himalayan mountains. I met people in the cities. I met people at ashrams. I met people that I wouldn't even call people, more like presence. You meet somebody, there's no name exchange, there's no conversation, there's just this spending 2 or 3 days with somebody without exchanging a word. I met this guy in a Himalayan rehabilitation and a place for refugees to go in the Himalayas. And it was a camp for Tibetans. And there was an old monk there who, very clean robes and everything, but they were all sewed up and patched. And I'm watching him do this special exercise thing, and I'm watching him from a distance, me and my friend. And my thought was, I wonder what that's all about. I'd like to kind of do that. That looks interesting. But since I don't speak Tibetan, and the guy apparently didn't speak English, I just let it go. But I'm about from here to the back doors from him. And all of a sudden he stops doing it. He looks over at me and he goes, me? Yeah, come. So I get over there, and then he grabs my hands and he puts them in a position of prayer. And he does this, he moves my body around. And he teaches me something I was doing in the hospital as a child. I didn't know it was something. I'd never seen it before. But I was visualizing my breath going into my navel and up my spine and turning down and coming down. And I was doing this weird breathing thing. I was doing that at 8 years old. I just thought I made it up. And all of a sudden I'm doing this, and there's actually something here. And then he taught me a couple other things. And then I met somebody at an ashram, and he taught me some more things. And then I had some visions and some dreams and met some highly evolved beings, and more things evolved. But it's interesting that the more I learned, the dumber I felt. It was like, my God, I didn't know nothing to start off with, and now I even know less. What else don't I know? So first you have to realize we really don't know as much as we know, or we think we know. And when you reach that level where you've emptied the cup, you can get more tea. And so that's what we're kind of asking you to do today. I'm telling you to just rest the logical, analytical thoughts and just empty it. Come to me as an empty vessel, and I'm going to try to share tea with you. And I want you to feel the harmony, the bliss, and the peace that develops when you live a simplified, non-intellectual life, but one based on feeling and wisdom. Knowledge is great. You know, if you want to go to college, you got to be an engineer, you got to work on a computer, knowledge is good. But knowledge doesn't make the great discoveries. It's inspiration. It's the wisdom from inspiration. So listen to those whispers within you. And so I'm going to share my whispers with you today. This was just kind of an open volley. I just want you to kind of feel that. We're going to take a break at 2 o'clock. We're going to start getting into the depths of this thing and where we're going. But I just want you to kind of hold that thought. And realize that we as a group, all of you right now, the sea of faces, no one is here by accident. And as I told this the last group I did, and the group before that, and the group before that, I've seen all of you already in my third near-death experience. I saw it. These are the faces that are coming. So whatever you need from me, you're going to get. Whether some people may just be hope, some people may be inspired, some people leave here and feel good for a couple days. But those that have emptied themselves of this desire to analyze, it just says, well, let's just accept what he says and let's just roll with it. Let's just be. You will get the greatest blessing. And with that, I'll just tell you, when I was getting ready to get on an airplane to leave Sacramento, was at my house. I live in the suburbs, Elk Grove, California. Somebody knows where that at. Anyway, all right, about 200,000 people there almost. And I'm looking out my window, and peeking in my window is a peacock. I live in a cul-de-sac in a neighborhood kind of like this, right? I got a wild peacock in my backyard, pecking at my window, looking at me, saying, hey, what's going on? And it wandered all around the yard, wandered out the front, across the street, and then disappeared. A couple of neighbors saw it, we all saw it, and then we said, where'd it go? It just disappeared. But there was a peacock, and I said to myself, you know, I'm starting a journey to Encinitas. What an auspicious start. Visited by a peacock. So I don't want to ruffle any feathers there. We're going to take a break till 2 o'clock, and we're going to start up again. Thank you. So, I got to do Kriya Yoga. Great, if you're going to do it, do it. But if you're meditating and you're spending all your time just focused on the intellectual process, okay, I got to do 108, you know, I'm up, I'm down, it's hot, it's cold, there's this sound, there's that, where's my tongue, where's my body? And then most people when they're doing that, and then they're also counting, let's see, that's 100, okay, I'll do a couple extra, I think I missed. So all this thought process is going on. Where'd they ever get thoughtless, right? So at some point, you do a couple of breaths to start off with, and then it's an hour later, and you go, oh, that was interesting. But most people, Westerners in particular, and Indians too, when they're meditating, they're always analyzing. Oh, am I feeling anything? Is something supposed to happen? You know, what is this working? You know, well, they're always observing and analyzing the process instead of just saying, hey, here I am, God, I love you. But if you're meditating, do the meditation, follow the techniques, realize that's not really the meditation. That's the meditation technique. So what does Reverend Bill mean by that? That means when you finish that, finish your Hong Sau, you finish your Om, you finish the Kriya Yoga, you finish whatever one you're doing, the meditation starts then. Because you've been spending all that time talking, thinking, action, and now it's time just to sit back and listen and feel God. It's when you finish the basic process of doing the meditation techniques and you're sitting in the silence, John, when you're sitting in the peace of that moment, listening with your heart, not analyzing anything, that's where the results will show. But if you go into that thinking, okay, Bill says the results will show, okay, I'm going to sit here quietly, but I'm going to analyze this. And when I get done, did I feel it? Don't give it a thought. Here's the deal. And I'm telling you about this because we're talking about frequency. The greatest impact on your frequency is meditation. You want to get your frequency changed and elevated. You want to change the vibration. You want to get the light in your body greater. You want to become enlightened. You got to change the light frequency. All right? So when you're meditating, if you're meditating because you want to find self-realization, you want to become enlightened, you want to find peace, you want to get rid of this depression, if you got all these motives other than, I want to love God, you're always going to be one step behind. You're going to get to the door, and you're going to be knocking, but you're still at the door. You're not inside. It's the day you wake up, literally wake up spiritually, and you realize, I am the door. The guru's not out there. Yogananda, wherever you're following, is not out there. That guru is in you. What do you mean? No. You and the guru are one. There is only one. And that's why my methods work, because we're only talking about one. So when I tell you to work on yourself and heal yourself, you're actually healing the people that you love as well. Love is the currency that will truly buy you happiness. But you don't love to find happiness. You don't love to find peace. You don't love for any motive other than just to love. But a lot of people, when they pray, another way to change your energy, most people prayer is like going to Santa Claus. Hey, God, here's what I need. I need a new Volvo. I need money for a house pay. I want to change jobs. Hey, you know, I got an ache and pain. Can you cure me? You'll notice through this whole process, when we start talking about healing this hour, I'm not going to say much about asking for a healing. I want you to show gratitude for whatever you have in life and to love yourself where you are. And I'm going to give you some stories that will take you there. Okay, first off, let's talk about this basic hands-on. You already heard about the dog. I'm going down the Sacramento River about 30-some years ago, and I'm not into rafting, but I got talked into it, so I went. I'm going down this raft. We stop at this river, and I see all these young people dragging a body out of the river. So I run down the beach, being a former lifeguard, and I go down there, and there's this guy coming out, 17-year-old young man, dead. I mean, he's dead. They figured that they've been looking for him for 9 minutes, but he may have been missing for 20 or longer. So they know he's been underwater at least 9 minutes. But I'm looking at the melted snow water coming down from the Sierra Nevada. I know that water's really cold, so I'm thinking, okay, you know, I'm a lifeguard. It's my job. And I was also trained that you give first aid and you render mouth to mouth and all that stuff. And you don't quit until a fireman or a paramedic or a doctor says, okay, it's over. You never declare that, so I'm going to keep at this thing forever. So I roll him over, no pulse, not even faint, nothing, no breath, skin ashy white. I mean, just, and it's just, and all these people, these young people, are just hanging their heads down. And I'm going, what is wrong with these people? Just looking at the ground. They're all like teenagers, 16, 17, 18, 15 maybe. And I'm getting angry, and I'm doing mouth to mouth to mouth to mouth, and people going, oh, he's dead, stop, he's dead. Some of the adults come by, he's dead, you've been on it for minutes, And I just keep going. And all of a sudden, if anybody ever give mouth to mouth to anybody? When they come to, they kind of heave and upchuck, right? Okay. I learned that lesson. Anyway, so I finally get the 17-year-old recovered. He's up. Basically, he's come back from the dead. And the only thought I had was, what is wrong with you people? And I basically said that. I said, what's wrong with all you people? And this young girl standing there, I mean, looked like a typical Southern California beach bunny, right? Blonde hair, happy-go-lucky, And I said, what's wrong with you? Your friend was laying here dying. She says, we were doing something. I said, no, none of you were doing nothing. She says, oh, no, sir, we were doing something. I said, what were you doing? She says, we were all praying to Jesus that he would send somebody who knew what he was doing to save our friend. And I go, what? She says, and you came. I go, what? Anyway, so I told that story with a group that I did in Elk Grove with the old people. Remember the old people coming to the church? I skip around, but I'm taking you back to the old people. Because when I got done, I said to myself, what a stupid example of healing did I give? I mean, to these people. And I noticed this older lady, and she was crying. This was like a week before Christmas, and there was a Christmas tree in the church and Christmas decorations and everything. And afterwards, she took me aside, and she says, thank you for telling that story. And I go, why? She says, well, I was sitting around, I don't know what it's called, but an old age place, one of those assisted living places, whatever it was called, your mama's house or something. And she says, I was so depressed. Holidays were coming up, and I didn't know what to do. She says, and then you told that story, and it told me I was right coming here today. And I go, why is that? She says, because when my son died, he was 17, he drowned in a river, and nobody did anything. She says, I felt a spirit here today. Of course, I got teary-eyed. It was like, wow, okay, fine. So I generally go through things. I mention that because once in a while, like when we come back from break, I'll tell a story, and it seems like it's random. Like I was waiting for the old people to kind of settle down. I followed up with a second story, which I thought was stupid at the time. I told this because it was Christmas time, and I told a Christmas story. I'm going to share with this because I don't think I shared it with the last time. My son, who retired as a California Highway Patrol officer, and he was in the Golden Gate Bridge district, and his job was to patrol the Golden Gate Bridge and Marin County in that area in there, Sausalito, right by San Quentin. And before that week, he asked, Dad, he says, I'd like to get you a Christmas gift. I said, no, I have everything I needed. I said, but if you want to do something for me, tell me a good story. What do you mean? Think about it. Just let that hang. I want a good story from you. What do you mean? I said, just hold that intention. All right. So on this day, Christmas morning in the rain, just a couple of miles from the Golden Gate Bridge, comes upon this guy that just got released from San Quentin. Young guy about his age, early 20s. And he's bumming alongside the road, which you can't do. You can't be on Highway 101 walking on the highway, right? So he pulls over, but it's Christmas Day, right? So he says, he didn't want to hassle the guy, and he had him sit in the back of the car. He's going to give him a ride up to the next off-ramp. Tell him don't do that. And then he ran a check on him and found out he was on parole. Just spent 3.5 years or something in Folsom, not Folsom, that's where I used to work, in San Quentin. He was in San Quentin for all that time, but he noticed that the address that he gave as his place of residence when he got arrested was in Mill Valley. It's not that far from San Quentin, right? Just down the road. And he realized the guy had been out of jail about 3 or 4 months, and the guy was living on the streets and never went home. So he asked the guy, he says, my parents, they never know what happened to me because I was too ashamed that I got arrested and I was in jail and I never told them. So my son goes, okay, get in the back, shuts the door, and he drives them to that address. Now, he didn't call into his sergeant and say, hey, Sergeant, you don't take a homeless person to somebody's house without an invitation from the people, right? And you're not a transportation company. You're not a shuttle from the airport or something, right? I'm bringing you this guy here, So he goes to the house and he knocks on the door, and this old couple comes to, they were probably my age at that time. The old couple comes to the door, and he tells him the story. He says, I picked up this young man on the highway. They're looking in the back seat there. And I says, his address when he got arrested, You got arrested? Yeah, he's been in San Quentin 3.5 years. They started crying and everything. And he gave him the name of the kid. He says, that's our son. And he says, we have spent the last 3-4 years praying to God that we'd hear from him. And today, we prayed this morning for the greatest Christmas gift we could ever get would be to hear about him. And here you are, bringing him to our doorstep. Yes, we want him. So my son gets him, lets him out of the car, and the guy's afraid to come. He's afraid. He says, no, they want you. He walks up there, and my son watches from the car and sees him getting hugged and everything, and then they go in the house and wave at him. And he calls me up and he says, Dad, I got your gift. And he shared the story with me. So I told that to these old people. And I go, what another stupid story. But I'm following up one stupid story with another. Well, it turns out there was a guy there about 62 years old, a blues artist, played blues, jazz, all this kind of stuff. And he's listening to it, and he tells me, he says, at his age, I was in San Quentin 3.5 years myself. I was afraid to go home to Fresno or wherever it was. Right? He said, I was afraid to go home. But eventually I did, and I found out everybody greeted me. I realized that you can go home, and people do forgive you. Forgive. Remember that. That's where we're going with this. All right? If you're holding on to anger, if you're holding on to childhood hurts, if you're hanging on to wounds, oh, my parents did this to me. I was talking to this guy. Oh, my parents did this to me, and they didn't buy me a Christmas gift, and they didn't remember my birthday, and blah, blah, blah. It went on and on and on and on and on. And I go, well, I'm looking at him. He's 96 years old. And I go, when did this happen? He says, 1923. I remember to this day. Damn it. I go, when are you going to stop beating him up? I'm telling you, there seems to be no termination. There's no statute of limitations on being hurt. People will take it anger and their hurtness, if there's such a word. Is there hurtness? Is that a word? Their hurtness to the grave with them. It's the worst thing you can do. And you wonder why you're not feeling well. You have aches and pains. You have heart problems. You have arthritis. You have all kinds of other issues. We are our greatest enemies to our body, mind, and spirit. When you're angry and you're holding grudges against people, oh, my boss did this to me. No matter how many years ago, it's a bad boss. It was my wife, Deb. Which wife? Well, my third wife. Yeah, she was really terrible. And he's on his fifth wife, right? So they're all wrong, of course, right? Anyway, so forgiveness is really the key. So I had this guy come to me, and he was really a obnoxious, arrogant, egotistical, crazy guy. I mean, he was just really, you wouldn't want to work for him. His employees didn't want to work for him. His family didn't want to be around him. He had several ex-wives. He had children he hadn't seen in years. He had grandchildren he'd never met. And he came to me wanting sympathy and empathy from me because he'd been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. He was dying, and I go, all right. What do you mean, all right? I said, this is great. He says, what do you mean that's great? I said, you're being gifted the opportunity to know that you got 6 months left to live. That's what he had, 6 months left to live. And now you got 6 months to clean up your act. You got 6 months to do something about all those relationship problems. You can change. You can become a whole different person you are today. And he goes, that's a bunch of crap. I came here expecting, blah, blah, blah. And he left. All right, so then pretty soon, there's a funeral notice, and he's having a funeral in the town, and I'm there. And I see his ex-wives all together, and his children, his grandchildren. And they're talking, wow, we don't know what happened to him, but the last 6 months, I mean, he came to us, and he helped us with our bills. He took the grandkids to school. He did all kinds of stuff. He made up for things. He took care of past debts. He was kind. And I'm thinking, well, he must have told them he was dying, right? And they looked at me, no, he never said. We didn't know he was dying until he died. He didn't do it for sympathy. He did it because he listened to my whole talk that I gave him about doing the right thing. It was about forgiveness and love, but he had to start with himself. Because all that anger was him. So you got to ask yourself, was cancer his enemy? Was cancer a bad thing? If he left this world loved and filled up the place with all these loving people because the last 6 months he was just a great guy, that would have never happened if he just went out and got run over by a car. So was cancer a bad thing? So let's talk about the body. Let's talk about physical healing. For those that came here looking for physical healing, whatever you're looking for, whatever you're expecting, whatever you believe you can get, that will be your fact. That will be you. This is not about me. Okay? So, as a background, I don't know if some of you online may have seen pictures of me. The last couple of years, I had 15 surgeries in 2 years. 15. 14 actually, but the other one was a procedure. All right, but let's say 14 surgeries. My nose was cut off twice. Decade before it was cut off, so that's the third time. This nose is totally not my skin anymore. Forehead was totally cut off. In September, and for the next break, I'll show some pictures if people want to see it on my phone. In September, I was sliced and diced from here all the way down to here. Big cancer coming out from under the eyes. This whole nose was gone. Forehead was gone. That was September, not that long ago. For those that saw me in October, online or on a conference call or something, how many people saw me weeks after that surgery at least, or posted pictures or something? Yeah. You couldn't tell, it looked just like this. Still just as ugly as I was before. Nothing's changed. But when I had these surgeries, over 300 stitches in this face. And my wife always says, yeah, but they didn't stitch your lips up. You're never a prophet at home. Remember that. As she says it, yeah, you're a non-prophet. Anyway, so never took one pain pill. Not one. And for you, those of you who've seen me standing here and not sitting down and walking around, Thursday, I took a fall this recent week, and I landed and messed my back up. I had to go to the hospital and get x-rays and MRIs and everything. I couldn't walk for 3 days. I was like, how many back problems out there? We got a few people? Okay. I couldn't walk a couple steps. I couldn't sit, couldn't lay, couldn't stand. Everything was great pain. There was no comfort. And my wife's going, well, you're going to have to cancel your self-healing class. And I said, that'll look really good in the headlines, won't it? Yeah, self-healing class, canceled. Reverend Bill is injured, can't heal himself. So, and then I had some friends go, well, we can give you this marijuana stuff. It'll help you on the pain and stuff. And I go, no. No, I don't need it. If I needed it, I'd take it. But my faith is such, and my belief in what I'm doing. I went from Thursday not being able to stand to walking all around here, lugging 2 suitcases with 40 pounds of books in each one, and presenting myself in front of you when I couldn't even stand up. My wife says, what are you going to do? This was Thursday. I'm leaving Friday morning on the airplane. Thursday, I'm just like, She goes, no. I said, no. I will will myself better tomorrow. I went to the airport, lugging those big suitcases, got on the airplane, flew here, and here I am now. I'm telling you that what I'm teaching works. You have to believe it. Now, back a year and a half ago, my spinal column collapsed, boom, and I was in great pain, and again, I couldn't move. And I kind of crawled over to the chair, and I sat there, and then I go, well, I love me, I can do this. And that's all I had to think, and it was gone. But then I gave him a couple of these workshops, And people go, oh, that's, that's miracle stuff. I can't do that. People couldn't believe it could just be done. So I go into this whole thing where I get injured, and I said, okay, no magic. I'm just going to do it a different way. And this different way was just to turn it over, and whatever happens, happens. I knew and visualized in my mind I was going to be standing up here doing this class, no pain. A little different method. 2 years ago, I bit down on a pitted prune that was not pitted. Big old seed, right? It broke 2 molars on the top, 1 molar on the bottom. Not only did it break them, but it shattered them, and there was shards of the teeth into the gums. And when you took a breath, the breath would affect all the nerves. So I had 3 teeth with the nerves going crazy. I couldn't eat, couldn't drink, couldn't get in to see a doctor because it was, during COVID times, they didn't take new patients. I finally got in to see one guy. I told him, hey, look, you got to do something, not eating. So I go in there, and the guy takes x-rays. He looks at it, and he goes, yep, you got 3 broken teeth. I said, I know that. That's why I came. He says, can you fix them? He goes, well, this is March. He says, I can get you in August 28th. I said, okay, fine. He says, hey, look. He says, I'm going to need probably 3 root canals, take out, pull 3 teeth. Then I'll have to put some, pigs in there. And so he's thinking about $25,000 bill. And he says, well, maybe I can squeeze you in if there's a cancellation. So I go back to my house, and this is where all of us coming in. What am I going to do? I got to eat, kind of. Some people that know me don't think I do, but I do have to eat once in a while. But I can't have this pain at that level. I'm pretty good at taking pain. So I sit there in front of my computer and I'm going, what would my old Kahuna say? He'd say, love yourself. And I'm thinking, I love my teeth. So I sit there and I put my hands on my jaw, both hands, and I go, not out loud because people think you're crazy, but in my head, remember, all this stuff's in your head, trust me. What's wrong with you? Oh, it's all in my head. I love you, meaning my teeth. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. And I'm sorry that I broke you. Thank you for all the work that you gave me those lovely years that I had these great teeth. Thank you. Never prayed for a healing for the teeth. Never said, geez, I'm sorry, don't take the pain away, nothing. I just gave my teeth love for 2 minutes. Put my hands down, sat there, and then realized there was an absence of all pain. Gone. So I went downstairs and got ice cold water. I figured this would be a test, right? Nothing. So got a cancellation. I went in about a week later, and he goes, the dentist, he says, I've canceled everything this morning. Got 2 dentists here. We're both going to work on you because this is going to be a big deal. And he says, yeah, we're going to do 3 root canals. I'm going to pull 3 teeth. We're going to do this, that. And he says, and we'd like you to pay cash. I said, okay, I got no problem with that. Because in my mind, because the night before, somebody in India liked something I did for them. And a year later, they sent me $150 on PayPal. And then somebody else sent me $500 from someone else I did. Anyway, it ended up I had about $650 or $625. All came in within 12 hours of him asking for money. So I had that, PayPal. I said, yeah, okay. He's thinking 20 grand. I'm thinking whatever I got in my, that's it, right? So I said, yeah, okay. So I sit in the dentist chair, and he said, yeah, he's going, all right. And he's going to clear my schedule to his nurse, I've got this taken care of. And 25, 30, 40 minutes later, he's all done. And he goes, well, I'm sorry I didn't I pull your teeth. I go, well, that's okay, Doc. I forgive you. He says, I'm sorry I didn't do the root canals. And I said, I'm sorry too. I'm sorry you didn't get to bill me on that. And he says, I didn't even do a crown molar. He says, I was just kind of fixed everything, kind of went to place. And so I said, well, thank you. I said, how much is that going to be? He goes, $625. Exactly what I had. Here you go. So, you'll have people come to you and say, I'm a healer. I'll do Reiki. You know, I'm a Reiki master, whatever, right? I'm going, okay, Reiki master, heal 3 broken teeth. Heal broken kneecap. Heal broken bone. He'll bring somebody out of a coma. When you show me somebody who'll do that, bring them in the class. I'll give them a certification. You're ready to go. Teach. Nobody heals broken teeth. But my body did. How could it go from having to pull them and doing root canals to nothing? Just basically, just in days. Days. So, when my daughter, you know my daughter, right? When she was the age you met her, which was what, 1990 or 89 or something, she fell down the stairs of my house. She was snow skiing and she didn't know how to ski. At night in Squaw Valley, the Olympic slopes, on one of those big ones, right? With short skis, not knowing what she's doing. Anyway, she blows her kneecap out. She calls me. I'm in Washington, D.C. on business. And she goes, Dad, I need permission. Surgeons here at Kaiser, they got a soft cast on my leg right now, but when the swelling goes down, they want to operate. And I said, there's nothing wrong with your knee. Oh, Dad, come on, man. I seen the x-rays. There's about 30 pieces. You know, it's like, I go, I'll be home in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, Dad? I said, no, there's nothing wrong with your knee. Don't let them do anything to it. You think she would know, right? So I get her home, and I take her into my meditation room where I've been meditating for 20-something years at that time. Lay down on the carpet. I gave her a picture of Yogananda, the Last Supper, that one. Last time he talked. Final, whatever it's called. What's it called? That's it, Last Smile. And she had my Kriya beads. And remember what I did to my dog? I won't remind you. You remember. But had you fooled now. All right. So I did this on her kneecap. I just said, hold the picture, hold these beads. Boom. And she was totally open and accepting. Got done. I said, take your cast off. You know, Velcro. Stand up. Boom. Walk upstairs. Walk down. All right. Done. Finished. So she goes back to the doctor a few days later at Kaiser. And Kaiser goes, no, we don't believe in miracles, of course. So therefore, nothing must have been wrong with it. She said, who told you needed this surgery? She said, you did. Oh. And he looks at the x-ray and says, oh, I don't know what happened. It must not have been as bad as it was. He says, okay. So she comes home and says, Dad, you didn't do nothing. Doctor said nothing was wrong with it. I said, oh, really? Okay. So about a day later, she falls down the stairs. It's broken worse than it was before. When you touched it, it was like jello. I said, you want to try this again? And she's in great pain. She's crying. And we did it again, except this time I had a little suggestion, kind of an art lesson here. I said, when I get done, it'll be 95% better. But that 5% is going to take 6 months. You'll just feel a little something there. Exactly 6 months later, and it was perfect. But it was just not quite fully done. But she could walk. She could go to classes for college. So she was open to that. I had a neighbor. I'm telling you these stories so I want you to see what this technique does and what's possible. Had a neighbor. She had cancer of the bones, the back, and all kinds of places. And she went into a coma during Christmas month. And she had this thing, because I visited her in a hospital, and she had this thing where she wanted to see, she knew she was dying, but she wanted to see her grandchildren. That's first grandchild was starting to be, going to be born during that Christmas time. And she was regretting that she wouldn't be around to have a picture with them and to meet the grandchild. And that was all she cared about. And I listened to her when she was in the what's the word I'm looking for? I was going to say, what's the IOC? What is it? ICU. Yes, I do. I see you. And you. Anyway, sorry you fell for that. So I was in there with her, and then the next day I found out she went into a coma. And they said, I went to visit her as her reverend. I could get into the ICU. And And she was totally unconscious. They said, no, she ain't coming back. That's it. She's in a coma now. And I said, okay. Nobody was around. I did this again. Boom. She opens her eyes. And next day, they looked at her and said, well, she's out of the coma and she's requested to go home. But she's dying. And I said, well, let her out. Die at the hospital, die at home. What difference does it make, right? She's awake, right? So they let her home. She was home. And I went over to visit her, and she's in a wheelchair. And she's holding her new grandchild. And she got a smile from ear to ear. It didn't change her time of death. She still expired when that, the date that's on your carton says, expiration date. She still died when she was supposed to die. But she was awake. And she was able to embrace her child. My mother-in-law, she was in the Catholic Church on Easter Sunday, had a stroke, passed into a coma, never woke up. She ended up in a, they take you to a place that, there you're laying in a bed, and she was unconscious. And we had to make some decisions, or do we continue this process? They say she's never coming out. It's like there's nothing going on there. But I wanted her to kind of let me know. So she was unconscious, and I laid the hand on her head, gave it that energy and tension and love. And she opened her eyes. She sat up after she'd been 9 days unconscious, turned around and looked at me, kind of gave me a knowing look like, do it. Closed her eyes, gently laid back down the pillow, and never woke up again. Died a few days later. What I'm trying to say is, if it's a tooth, if this method works on broken teeth, and if this method works on reviving a dead person, basically, or somebody in a coma, or a kneecap, I'm not saying, oh, I did this and they had the flu, but they felt much better. They felt better. We're not talking about feeling better. I'm talking about being better. There is a difference. Because you go, a lot of people, oh yeah, I believe they feel good. Yeah, it's improved. And then the next day you talk to them and they go, oh no, it's back. It didn't go anywhere. So I'm telling you the real deal, if your mind accepts it, if your heart accepts it, then if you believe you're going to be healed, you will be healed. It's real. The energy's there. But what happens is, I've changed my frequency. And for the people that are successfully using this, they're changing Kim there, right? The doctor down there, he's got business. He uses love in his healing, what he does. It works. It makes a difference between this and that. But for yourselves, if you don't love you, it's repetitive here, I keep coming back to this. If you don't love you, you're not going to heal you. If you don't forgive you, you're not going to heal you. So here's what we're talking about. You want to heal yourself, change your frequency. Change your frequency means deeper meditation. But it also means watching your diet. Okay, a lot of people here are vegetarian or vegan or something. Oh, I've changed my diet. No, have you really changed your diet? Meaning, what are you watching on movies? What are you watching on TV? What are you reading? And what are you looking at on the internet? What's on YouTube? What do you fill in your soul and your mind with? Violence? Trash? I mean, it's not a sin. I'm just talking about vibration. Oh, I just have a couple glasses of wine every day. You're changing your vibration. There's no level of alcohol that is good for you. Fact. If you have it and you enjoy it, great, feel good. It's all right. I'm just telling you, it's not a sin, but it also changes your vibration. You want to change your vibration to the highest levels? Avoid alcohol, avoid meat, avoid drugs. Now, if you have to take one from a doctor, meditation, take it with love. Bless it. But we are our own worst enemies. And if you don't forgive yourself or you don't forgive others, you've destroyed your vibration, because your vibration is just one of anger. Self-anger or anger aimed at someone else. But all anger aimed at other people is really anger at yourself. All love for others is really love for yourself. All hate for others is a hate for yourself. Whatever you give out, you get back. Simple as that. Or maybe not so simple. People have a hard time with that. So, we're talking about basic healing. Here's what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to talk about with this group, and I'll demonstrate it on a couple people, and then we're going to take a break. And then, what I'm going to do, for those that wish, if you don't wish, then don't do it. But I'm going to have the group participate in a healing of the whole group. I want everybody, you know the thing they chant in the services around here, Om, where you go, Om, right? We're going to do that. We're going to send our energies to other people as I'm doing people. And if you practice what we're doing here today and what I show you on yourselves, if nothing else, on yourselves, mentally, spiritually, and physically, you can and you will be healed by your own acceptance. If you think it's partially affected, then you're right. If you think it won't work, you're right. If you think it's absolutely going to work, you're right. There's nobody going to be wrong here, because whatever you believe is exactly what you're going to get. I've seen it. Just when I told my wife, I will be here standing in front of the group when I couldn't actually walk. I couldn't go upstairs, downstairs. It took me 6 minutes, 3 to 6 minutes to go downstairs 13 steps, my house. Think about that. That's a long time to go, a step at a time, That's about 30 seconds a step. It was painful. But I knew, I visualized myself here. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about using visualization. I'm talking about using love. I'm talking about using forgiveness. I'm talking about using energy. And more importantly, because I've undersold it here, is you have to have gratitude. And that means when they were operating on my face, and when you see the pictures, you're going to go, oh, yeah. Because no description of what I went through is going to tell you how bad it really was. I mean, my nose was gone. I was just a big hole there. 3 times in my life, but twice in the last couple of years. It's not as much fun as it sounds. I know. But when I was going through that, I never complained once to my wife or family or friends. Anybody ever hear me complain about my physical ailments? I'm serious. Have I ever? Nothing. 0. What's the point? Because I look for the gift in everything that happens to me, including when I go to the doctor, and the guy goes, it's going to have to cut the nose off. And in fact, you might lose both eyes because tumors were, underneath the eye cavities, and your cancers, your lips are precancerous, so you may have to cut those off eventually, and your ears maybe have to. So that was a diagnosis I was given 2 years ago. A lot of people would go, oh my gosh. Me, I go, what an interesting gift. What great things can come from this? Right? Because if I overcome this, what a hell of a story that's going to be, right? And it's like if you're an alcoholic and you're trying to quit it, or you're a drug addict and you're trying to quit, are you going to go to somebody like me that doesn't drink, doesn't do drugs? My words are useless. You're going to go to somebody who's been through it. So when it comes to pain and destruction to the body, if you really read my history of my body and all the stuff I've been through, I've been blown up by a Russian rocket, knocked unconscious. I've been in 7 helicopter crashes. I've been shot by a machine gun. I mean, the list goes on. You name it, car crashes, motorcycle crashes, open heart surgery, quadruple bypass, 8 stents, 12 heart attacks. The list goes on. Falling off cliffs in Himalaya, falling off 2-story house several times. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on and on, right? I mean, how many people here have been shot besides me? Oh, how many people had a helicopter crash besides me? All right, Bill back there, my buddy. All right, another military guy. All right, so as much fun as all that sounds, it's a training. It's a gift. And all that stuff that happened to me is your gift. because I had to learn to handle all that, and I always refused, no matter how bad I was badly damaged, I always refused pain meds. Now, doctors won't operate on you unless they put you out. So, okay, they wouldn't let me do that. They want to watch. No, we got to give you open heart surgery, right? So, before we take a break, I'm going to tell you the story of my open heart surgery because it's kind of a near-death experience, but it's something even weirder, if that's weird. I had a knotty palm leaf reading done. How many people know what I'm talking about? Knotty palm leaf reading. It's the ancient rishis 2,500 to 5,000 years ago. They channeled people in the future, their lives, and they had scribes write down and carve into these palm leaves, the hard part of the palm, a message for them, things they had to overcome and do in various lifetimes. And so back 5,000 years ago, and their predictions go all the way even hundreds of years in advance still. And if you had one of these written for you, you would find it when it was your time. So I was sent by a guru in India to go get it done. I didn't believe in it, and it didn't make any difference. Anyway, I had this reading done. One of the predictions, well, you give you a thumbprint. That's it, thumbprint. No name, no social security number, nothing they could do a reference on. Thumbprint. And I was stupid because you realize you give a thumbprint, it could take up to 6 months to find your leaf because it could be 20 different places in India. I didn't know that. I thought the guru sent me down here for this. I'm going to sit there and wait till they get it, right? 6 hours later, they found it. And they did these things, and they ask you these questions, about 40 questions, and you have to answer yes to them all. If you don't, that's not your leaf. So they go, finally he gets to the 7th leaf, and he says, your name is 4 letters long. Yeah, I go by Bill. It's really William, but yeah, I go by Bill. So I said, yes. You're not supposed to give me any information. And then he goes, it starts with the letter B. I go, okay. And it's Beeler. They've had trouble with Bill. B-I-L-L. They said, that's it. I said, that's cool. He says, and your father's name was, meaning he's dead, and your father's name was exactly the same as yours. I'm Junior. All right, so that made sense. And he says, your mother's name starts with an M, Marcella. They couldn't pronounce it correctly, though. And I go, this is in India they're doing this, right? So they think Marcella, that's an Italian name. Well, that's impressed. And they go, and your wife's name is Carol. Now I'm really impressed. And she went to a top university in the country. Well, UC Berkeley, I always argue with her that it's not, but she says it is. I mean, I went to the University of San Francisco. Come on, that's the top. The Dons, right? Anyway, so they go through all those things of what you got, and they go, and you're born in 1946. I go, well, that's a pretty good guess. They're looking at my age. And March 16th, 1946. So well, we're having trouble on the time of the birth. We think you were born between 110 and 125. Now, here's the funny part. When I was born in the hospital, they didn't believe my mother that she was getting ready to deliver. So we got to give you an enema first. Well, she delivered right in the enema pan. And it came and the doctor wasn't there. By the time the doctor got there, my head's in this pile of crap. So don't give me your humble beginning stories. Nobody's got one more humble than I did. And I've been full of shit ever since. So anyway, so there I am. Doctor comes in. They have no idea when I'm born. So they take a guess. They go, well, between 110 and 125. So they put some number in between there on the birth certificate. That's what this reader did. He says, we don't know. It's between. We're just going to use this as the time. They did the same time the doctor did, and they had the same reason they didn't know between the. That's weird, because nobody knew that story at the time. Anyway, so I get a reading later that day. They tell me about everything they tell me about me getting there, like from day one to I got there was true. And then they gave me future predictions, and then they went to a past life and did that. The future prediction says, on this date, you're going to go to southern India, and you're going to go to the Shiva temple. And when you get to the Shiva temple, and they named it, you're going to walk uphill 2 to 4 hours and wait in the top of this hill or the rishis, the guys that wrote these things, right? The rishis will be waiting for you. And you will sit down with them at the sacred fire, and you will not have any questions, because every question you will know the answer to already. I thought it was the stupidest prediction. All right? And then Lord Shiva and one of his guys, is Babaji or whatever, is going to anoint you. You're going to be sitting or standing someplace, and you're going to be anointed with oil and water. And so I thought those predictions were kind of crazy. Well, the next year I'm at the ashram. I have a major heart attack. I collapse at a stadium. I won't do that to you guys today. It was a much bigger audience. It was more reactive. Anyway, so anything for a laugh, right? Come on. So anyway, I get back to the United States. I collapse at the airport. I end up in the hospital. 4 days in ICU, right? ICU. And then they take me down into a table. I'm buck naked, laying on this metal table with about the thinnest sheet that they ever could manufacture. You could see between the webs, the lines. It was like nothing. And the doctor goes, "You got any questions?" I go, "Yeah." Like, what's happening? He says, "I'm going to rip your chest open," exact words, "rip your chest open." And he shows me these pruning shears, kind of like, "I'm going to cut your ribs." And I got this stretcher, and he shows me the stretcher. It's going to hold your rib cage open. And I'm listening to this thinking, boy, this guy's got good bedside manner. I'm going to hire him someday. But I don't want to make him mad. No, I don't want to piss him off now. But so he says, I got this machine over here. He says, I'm gonna stop your heart, and I'm gonna stop your lungs, and I put you on this heart-lung machine, and it's gonna pump oxygen and blood into you. And I go, "Well, Doc, if I'm not breathing, yeah, and my heart ain't beating, yeah, am I dead?" He goes, "Yeah, we kill you, but it's only for a little while, 6 or 8 hours." He says, "Then hopefully we start it up again. Not a problem. Normally it happens." This is the guy's sense of humor, and I was hoping it was a sense of humor. I'm saying, "God, make that a sense of humor, please." So I go into this thing, and they give me this stuff. I pass out. As soon as I'm black, my mind, just consciousness, total black, boom. I'm awake, and I'm standing outside that Shiva temple in India. Not an astral form, not out-of-the-body experience of any kind, not a near-death experience. I'm standing there, and people are bumping into me, and I feel the heat on my skin. And then what's my first thought? Hey, do I got any clothes on? It's like, I'm no dummy. I mean, I can't be standing there naked, not even in India. Come on, So I cut, no, I'm good. That's my only question I had was not what am I doing here? Why? That's the normal question, be like, why am I here? What's happening? No, it's like, do I have any clothes on? That was it. So, and then I looked over, and Shiva temple, what does it have right outside the door? Got a big bowl, right? I go, oh, this is Shiva temple. And I go, this is the one I'm supposed to be at. That's the one I was predicted to go to. So I look at the hill, and I go, I'm going to take that path. I'm going up the hill. I walk up the top of the hill, and they're sitting around a sacred fire on logs, rocks, and stuff. There's 18 of these rishis. And the guru that sent me to get the reading, he was there too. And I thought, this is weird. So I sit down. I have no questions. I feel totally at peace. I'm feeling in that body that's on that mountaintop, that body is feeling hands and stuff inside. Like there's stuff going on in me. But other than that, I'm looking around. I'm not a ghost. I'm not an astral body. I'm not doing any kind of astral traveling. I have manifested a second body. I'm there in that body, in the flesh. I'm sweating from the heat. I'm feeling the heat of the fire. And then the guru that sent me to the reading goes, yeah, you can skip a few beats, but don't give up heart. I go, what the heck's that supposed to mean? He goes, no, skip a few beats, but don't give up a heart. So, because I was at the point in my life, it was so painful and miserable. And even the guy that always looks at everything as a gift, was saying, boy, this is really not too much fun anymore. This is kind of like miserable, right? This is not too good. This is a 12th heart attack or 10th or something. I'm going, this is not too good. So I'm trying to make my mind if I want to just stop breathing or not. And all of a sudden, this cloud, the whole sky is just a big cloud. And in that cloud, I hear a voice, and the voice is a beautiful woman's voice. And she goes, Bill, you've done everything you had to do. You don't owe anybody anything. I promise you love, peace, comfort, harmony, bliss, joy. Just goes on, right? Every word you can think of. Pick up a thesaurus. There it was, joy, everything. And I go, wow. She says, no, you don't owe anybody anything. And then the guru guy keeps going, Bill, don't give up heart. And I go, why? She's promised me bliss and everything. What do you promise me? She says, I'm promising you more pain and suffering than you've ever had in your life. I go, what kind of sales pitch is that? I mean, come on, give me something. He says, no. And I said, why would I want to do that? And then he just kind of does this, and all that cloud appears. Thousands and thousands and thousands of faces. Old, young, children, even a few dogs, a couple cats. But all these people, and it just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. And he goes, because if you give up heart, none of these people will get the gift that you're going to give them. The gift could just be inspiration, a story, a healing, teaching them something through your life, teaching them to handle pain, whatever it is. They're going to miss it. You're not required. It's after school work. But all these people will miss it. And that wasn't enough. I'm going, what? No, and he goes, no, but the gift is you're going to have to experience all that pain and suffering without any miracles. You'll have to learn how to overcome all that pain yourself. That's the only way you'll be able to teach people is to go through it yourself as a normal person. Because up to that time, I just, beep, it's gone, beep, that's it. No more. So he's promised me pain. So all of a sudden, I'm standing there in this mountaintop, and all of a sudden, they're apparently defibrillating my heart. Because all of a sudden, I'm feeling this whoomp and boom. Now I'm laying on the operating table, butt naked, with this thin sheet, cold, and in the greatest pain I've ever felt in my life. And I got my mouth, I got a tube down it, got my eyes taped shut. I mean, I'm strapped down. I can't do nothing. I can't say nothing. And I hear this one doctor say to the other doctor, he goes, doctor, I think he's feeling stuff. The anesthesia's worn off. And the guy goes, don't worry about it. It's only another 40 minutes. And I'm going in my head going, what? Can you hear me? Come on, another 40 minutes. That's going to be the longest. Yes, it was. It was the longest 40 minutes of my life. It took 3 days to go through 40 minutes. It was crazy. So I was promised more pain and more suffering, and it was immediate. But I still didn't give up. I still didn't give up. I was still thinking, well, I'm in the hospital almost 3-4 weeks. Anybody that had heart surgery, 3-4 days, they're kicking you out, right? I mean, nobody stays in the hospital anymore. Oh, yeah, well, you're a freeloader. Get out of here. What do you mean? We just cut 2 feet off? Go ahead. Get out of here, right? So I was so weak. So they were taking me downstairs because I just had 5 blood transfusions after the surgery. I was getting weaker every day. And every time I went to sleep or took a nap, I was back on the mountaintop again. And I kept hearing the guru going, you could skip a few beats, but don't give up heart. And I go, this is getting crazy, right? So finally, about 10:30 at night, they're wheeling me out. Phone goes off, landline, next to the bed by the hospital. And I said, I got to answer that. And they go, no, we got to take you down for this emergency stuff, No, I got to answer that. So I finally got on the phone, and it goes, Bill, this is Gurnath from India. And I go, yeah, okay, how many Gurnaths do I know? So, come on, right? So he says, you can skip a few beats, but don't give up heart. I go, what? What'd you say? He says, you can skip a few beats, but don't give up heart. And I'm going, what? So then I've been wondering, was all this a dream? Was this really a vision? Where's reality anymore? And then he goes, because that wasn't working, I was still thinking, I'm just getting out of here, right? And then he goes, Bill, I just told these people that I was going to heal you, and I sent them up to the temple to meditate. Don't embarrass me. And then he hung up. All right, we're going to take about a 10-minute break. We're going to come back. We're actually going to do the healing technique.